I don't know what it was about that particular unveiling of the rankings that did it for me, but specifically when it happened, when you saw Florida State's name and logo, it felt good. I know what they're ranked. I know the way we've spoken of this group. I know that they've won, double digit, it was 13 or 14 in a row now, whatever it is. I know that they've been ascending to a place where they belonged in this conversation, and we've spoken of them that way. And yet, something about just seeing their name there with the playoff contenders and all of that seemed to remind me to appreciate it. Not like overlook things or pretend like that it's a perfect team or anything like that, but just appreciate and not really worry about some of the slights that, we all have rabbit ears when it comes to people we love, teams that we root for, whatever it might be. Like if I really like a band and somebody says something negative about them, I hear that in a way, and your ears perk up from across the room. You're like, who is this dumbass? So we all do that. All fan bases really do that with their teams. And so when they're spoken about by outsiders, non-Florida State fans, we have our antennas up. We hear every implied snipe, every sort of reference to anything that is less than attractive about our team. We hear it. We see ghosts sometimes. Sometimes people are just talking about a team, and because they're not lauding our favorite team, we're like, oh, you don't like us. So, it's kind of silly, but we all do that. Most all fan bases do it. Florida State fans do it a lot. And I've done it too. But none of that bothered me last night. No matter what any of the panelists said, no matter how we were discussed, no matter the reasoning or the lack of a consistency to what the committee must have been looking at, like they correctly lauded Ohio State's schedule and then conveniently forgot that we have the second best schedule, strength of record in the grouping, right? So they did it for one, but they didn't do it for another. All right, so that inconsistency fits with previous eras of the playoff committee, right? But it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. And it certainly wasn't going to get in the way of really appreciating the position we find ourselves in again. Been a minute. And now here we are, firmly entrenched in the conversation amongst the 6 to 8 teams in the country that are elite. However you want to shape them, however you want to place them, whatever you think of them. I don't care who you root for, where you live, where you graduated, how you view the game of football. There is no reasonable conversation about football hierarchy and the teams that have a chance to win a national championship that does not include Florida State. Nobody can have that conversation. You could be a diehard Cane. You could be a diehard Gator. You cannot have this conversation about the larger discussion of college football right now without including Florida State as one of the contenders to win a national championship. And that's true of about maybe 8 teams. Maybe. A lot of teams play football, Tom. There's a lot of football teams out there, a lot of programs, a lot of seats being filled by fans watching a product that has zero chance to be in that larger conversation. So that's kind of what hit me last night more than anything else.
Yeah, it feels familiar in the one sense, but almost like an out-of-body experience in the other, because it has been 9 years. The first year that the college football playoff was in existence, we were there and the middle part of the discussion. I'd say we were the focus of the national discussion because it was, how can you drop Florida State week by week? That's what it got to. We settled in at 3 before we got sent off out west.
Yeah.
This time, we're not the focus of the discussion, but we are a part of it. And even though we've had moments in the last 4 or 5 years where they sent the A-team down here, Fowler and Herbstreit have called more games than you think, even when we were really, really bad. They made their way down to Tallahassee for a lot of them. So that never felt out of place. But when you arrive on that program, which I don't care anything about the program, it's just about what it means in the discussion as you're talking about it. When you arrive during that hour and they're talking about you in the primary sector where it's comparing resumes and talking about who belongs in. Oh, of course, Florida State's in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That validates everything that we thought we could be. And I hate that it's ESPN that does it, but it's the show. It's the College Football Playoff Committee making their rankings. It validates everything that we thought we could be in the offseason. Everything that we thought we could be at the end of last year if we could just bother to retain a few key pieces.
Not easy to do. Thank you, Battle's End.
And then as we came out of spring and we looked and we said, all right, they got better in this area and that area. And you look and say, where are the gaps in the portal? What can this team be? It's not that the job's over. You've got 4 more games to go and a conference championship. If all the cards fall right.
And 2 of those are rivalry games where you know they want nothing more than to ruin your season.
Well, the most important thing is this is a huge win for the long term because what it validates more than your feelings, my feelings.
Of course.
It validates the conversations that Mike Norvell and his assistant coaches have with high school players, saying that oh no, this is getting better. And wait till you see the results. There's a result last night that now you can fire off text messages. You can have a phone call with a recruit, an official visit in the near future for the Miami weekend where there's going to be dozens upon dozens of high caliber kids coming into town. And you say, I told you. Now, for us to be put over the top, I need you. And that pitch is so much more compelling than it could have been even this time last year when you had improved.
Yeah, well, the upwardly mobile nature of the program was stamped with approval last night in those rankings, even though we knew that was a formality. We were aware of it. It's just nice to see it before you. It's like, okay, I'm picking the car I want online, and I want this feature, and I need this feature, and I want to add this to it. It has to have weather, and I want the Harman Kardon stereo system, and I want all these different things, right? But then when it's delivered, you're like, ooh, look at it. You knew exactly what you were getting. You saw the damn thing. You knew what it was. You put it together. But when it's there, you're like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, that was last night. We know we're ranked number 4 in the country. We know we're 8-0. We know that we're in the playoff hunt. We know we're a good football team. We know we're in the greater discussion of, are you better than Georgia? Maybe, maybe not. Are you better than Michigan? Maybe, maybe not. Are you better than Ohio State? Maybe, maybe not. There aren't too many teams you're going to name where this, where you can say that about a program. Like Ohio State fans can do that today. Michigan fans can do that today. And to an extent, Oregon and Washington and a few others can do that. But we're part of that group that is doing that very thing right now. Comparing resumes, comparing rosters, comparing schedules, all of that. That's what we're doing. Comparing quarterbacks and coaches and game times and future games and all of that stuff. And, of course, recruiting classes are a big part of that as well. And so, yes, today and last night are days to celebrate because that hard work and that transition from sorry 2 years ago to elite, no matter what happens the rest of the way, has happened. It's occurred. That transformation has occurred, barring a catastrophe. That will remain true no matter how the season ends. When the clock strikes 0, is that in a playoff game? Is that in the ACC championship game? Is that it? And I get it. A lot of people would tell you that if you lost in the ACC championship game, you had a disaster of a season, but that's just simply not true. By definition, right now, it's not true. All the things you needed to have happen have happened. Now, we're not done, to your point. Certainly not done. And it would be bitterly disappointing if somehow you lost to both Miami and Florida, for example. I could see that being a hellacious fall from grace. But in a lot of ways, for the recruiting mechanism, for the recruiting aspect of this, it's already mission accomplished.
Yeah, agreed. And you're one of, by my count, this is my own count, 8 teams in the country right now that can say, if we win out, we're going to the college football playoff. We are going
to the college football playoff.
It's the top 6, and I think it's Alabama and it's Mizzou, oddly enough.
Well,
but Mizzou would have to beat Georgia.
It's this weekend.
Right. Mizzou beats Georgia, but then they would win the SEC championship. If they went out, they have their path before them. Ole Miss needs help because Alabama has to stumble along the way, so they don't count. I don't think the Big 12 counts in that discussion where they say, if we win out, we're definitely in the playoff. No, you're not. Not right now.
No, not right
Not
now.
right now.
Not right now.
And a one-loss SEC team would get in over a one-loss Big 12 conference champion.
Unless that was Texas who beat Alabama head-to-head, and Alabama was the one-loss SEC winner.
I still think it becomes...
I don't think you can do that. You cannot rightfully do that. If Alabama and Texas have the exact same record, Texas beat Alabama at Alabama. We're done here. That's the end of it. There's zero chance. You can't. Well, we should stop watching the sport. There's no.
You and me could say that, but the committee might say something.
I don't think so, because
different.
the committee does value head-to-head. They do. Now, if the records aren't like, if a team has 3 losses and they beat somebody, and that team who lost to that team can still go if they have a better record.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have the exact same record and they're both conference champions, and the only thing separating them was a head-to-head matchup where one team won the damn game on the road at your place.
Yeah, well,
convincingly.
Understood, but they have Oklahoma behind Texas right now. And how do you figure that? I mean, like, Oklahoma beat Texas head-to-head, so how is that possible?
It's a mistake.
Well, I'm saying that mistake could carry through to the Final Four. And it just depends on the insulation, I think, between those two teams in the rankings before you get to that week. That they can hide behind that. Well, they were number 7 and they were number 5, so that's why we're moving Alabama up to number 4 with 1 loss. They can do whatever the hell they want to. And here's one thing that they did, and they chose to do, that annoys me, but it does indicate that there is a gap between the top 3 and number 4. It's what you said. If you're talking about resume and accomplishment right here, right now, Florida State should not be number 4 in the country.
No, it should be 2. If we're doing resume, specific resume, they should be 2.
And if you're open to the idea that Michigan can fall to number 3, then they should fall to number 4. They should fall to number 5. You shouldn't stop at 3. That doesn't make any sense unless you're telling me that the eye test ends at 3.
This is what I'm telling you.
Florida State is below this upper plateau of 1, 2, and 3,
right?
Which is when they put up that graphic that had 1, 2, 3 in the resumes. That made me a little angry. It did.
Yeah.
Because our resume, if you put us on that screen, there's plenty of room to, not do little graphics now. You could size things down just a little bit, put Florida State there. Number 4, you would have a what gives argument, but they didn't want to have the what gives argument in that broadcast about strength of record, strength of schedule.
They're never going to. Now, I will tell you that it is largely imperfect no matter what they do. You're not going to, so the good news is this. Michigan and Ohio State play one another.
Okay? Of course.
We're not going to have to worry about all this.
But it is fair to say at this point, the way that they rank the top 3, that they believe that there is a second tier, and we are a top tier 2.
Yeah, they think we're the best of tier 2.